Happyland. It sounds like the kind of place where families go on weekends. A name that suggests balloons, theme parks, and cotton candy smiles. But in Manila, that word means something very different. Say Happyland to a local, and you'll hear things like, "It's not safe." "Only crazy people go there." "You'll regret it." The irony is sharp. A name filled with joy attached to one of Asia's most infamous slums. In this episode of NVL Travel Documentary, we're taking you there. Not through headlines, not through rumors, but step by step deep into the heart of the place called Happyland. Number 1. Happyland, the largest slum in Asia. After walking through Tondo for nearly an hour, you find yourself stepping onto ground that no longer resembles a city street. The surface beneath your feet has changed completely, giving way to a patchwork of flattened plastic food wrappers and discarded packaging that have been compacted over years of use. Although you are still only a few kilometers from the high-rise towers of downtown Manila, the atmosphere has shifted entirely. This part of the city is not marked by clean roads or formal entry points. Instead, it begins gradually in the silence of missing infrastructure and the soft crunch of trash underfoot. Happyland sits inside the northern district of Manila, wedged between shipping yards, factories, and old train lines. Its location is central, not remote, but its presence is rarely acknowledged in any official sense. It emerged not by design, but by necessity. Decades ago, this area served primarily as a dumping site for food waste and construction debris brought in from other parts of the city. At first, people came to scavenge what they could, collecting leftover scraps to resell or reuse. Over time, some stayed. One makeshift shelter turned into two. A few families became hundreds. Eventually, what began as scattered piles of waste transformed into a tightly packed community, built without permission, but shaped entirely by human effort. The name Happyland was never meant to be taken literally. It is a local reinterpretation of the Visayan word Hapilan, which refers to a place where garbage decays. Over time, through mispronunciation or irony, that word morphed into something else. Something almost hopeful, though clearly disconnected from the environment it describes. The contrast between the name and the reality is sharp. There are no gates, no landmarks, and no signs welcoming you. But the moment you arrive, you understand where you are. Today, Happyland is estimated to house more than 100,000 people. Despite its dense population and central location, it falls outside most formal records and rarely appears in development plans. If you search for the name Happyland online, the search results will show you that this place has been permanently closed. But is that really the truth? That's exactly what we'll be exploring in today's video. Number 2. Daily life in Happyland. Stepping into Happyland, the very first sensation that wraps around you is the thick stench of damp refuse, mingled with the harsh fumes of smoldering plastic, a smell that proves this settlement has been awake long before the sun even grazes the gleaming districts only a few kilometers away. The morning soundtrack offers no gentle alarm tones, only the crackle of crumpled cellophane, the clink of glass bottles knocking together, and the steady growl of motor trikes piled high with scrap each note, signaling another race to claim whatever has value before someone else does. While cafes downtown are still steeped in the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, adults in Happyland are already buried elbow-deep in heaps of garbage, searching for bits of polyethylene aluminum and cardboard that can be exchanged for a handful of pesos, and children haul burlap sacks heavier than their own torsos instead of school bags. Potable water arrives only in battered blue canisters, dragged from a distant communal pump, and every walkway is riddled with puddles, the color of engine oil laced with sewage, and kitchen grease forcing each footstep to negotiate shattered glass hidden beneath the opaque surface. When the monsoon clouds burst entire lanes, transform into swirling gutters of debris and decay. Yet the rhythm of survival refuses to pause, because every minute spent hesitating means another scavenger might snatch the most valuable scrap first. According to the latest bulletin released in early 2025 by the Philippine Urban Development Commission, more than 1 in 3 residents of the capital now inhabit informal settlements like Happyland and Metro Manila, officially records the highest rate of homelessness per capita among major world cities. Those statistics are not abstract here. They breathe through every calloused palm, every oversized sack strapped to a child's back, and every guarded stare cast toward anyone who arrives late to the daily contest for recyclables. Amid this pungent air, you may wonder what would happen if one morning the thunder of garbage trucks suddenly fell silent and the lifeblood of refuse vanished overnight. Faced with that emptiness, how would you feed your household when the only dependable resource, this layered bed of trash beneath your shoes, simply ceased to exist? Number 3. Daily water is a luxury. In Happyland, water never flows from a tap. It arrives by tanker truck that rumbles in before sunrise and parks at the edge of the maze. Drivers uncoil rust-flecked hoses and sell every 60-liter drum for 4 or 5 times the official municipal rate just a few streets away. Families queue with every container they own, knowing a missed delivery can leave them without enough to drink, cook, or wash until the next dawn. Disputes flare the moment the hose sputters because each household understands how fragile the supply remains. One early morning mistake can translate into 24 hours of thirst. Enterprising residents purchase extra barrels, then spend the afternoon decanting water into recycled soda bottles and charging an even steeper price. Elevated costs force the poorest neighbors to ration every drop-trap rain that slides off patchwork roofs or dip buckets into a canal the color of engine oil. Rainwater carries ash from smoldering plastic, and the canal moves with industrial runoff, though desperation eclipses fear of infection. Toilets cannot operate without steady flow, so families share shallow pits behind corrugated walls that overflow as soon as storms sweep through. Sewage then seeps into puddles where children later wade while searching for recyclables. Health workers surveying the settlement in January 2025 recorded that roughly 1 child in 3 suffers chronic diarrhea linked to tainted water. Monsoon floods mix garbage wastewater and household floors into a single gray current, driving surges of typhoid leptospirosis and skin infections. Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Authority invests billions of pesos in bayside promenades that glimmer across tourist brochures while delivering not 1 liter to Happyland. Waiting in line with a plastic jug reveals the paradox of a Delta city surrounded by water that remains unsafe to drink. Every filled container sinks into tired arms, proving that access depends less on geography than on purchasing power and political recognition. Clean water, supposedly abundant in Manila, becomes a luxury commodity once neighborhood borders rewrite the rules of supply. This daily burden defines the rhythm of life in Happyland long after the tanker's engine has faded into the distance. Number 4. Women carry the whole family. Before sunrise, women in Happyland strap burlap sacks across their shoulders and move through soft mounds of waste, collecting bottles, cans, and wilted vegetables for resale at a junkyard several kilometers away. The day's earnings seldom exceed the cost of a single kilogram of rice. Nonetheless, supper appears each evening through careful bartering. Long lines at the water truck, and the quiet arithmetic of mothers who understand precisely how many grains will satisfy a child. Formal jobs seldom reach an unregistered settlement, therefore the entire household budget depends on this steady harvest of recyclables and leftovers. When the sun climbs higher, the same women nurture infants beside smoky cooking fires, mend torn clothes, and tend younger siblings while older boys and girls drag their own sacks across the rubbish heaps. Survival in this district advances on the determined footsteps of women who convert debris into currency and scarcity into meals. The United Nations Children's Fund designated the Philippines the global epicenter of online child sexual exploitation in its 2024 assessment. A label grounded in thousands of investigations that trace digital money transfers from foreign predators to improvised living rooms made of plywood and corrugated metal. Analysts link the crisis to relentless poverty. National health records confirm that approximately 95 children die every single day. From malnutrition pushing some guardians to exchange innocence for electronic payments that keep rice in a cracked plastic bowl. In settlements like Happyland, the distance between protection and risk narrows whenever hunger sharpens, and economic desperation can outpace parental instinct in terrifying ways. Housing shortages intensify each hardship, and abandoned drainage cylinders along the construction corridor have turned into makeshift nurseries for mothers without rent money or legal deeds. Inside these curved concrete shells, babies share space with rusty pots, while water drips through hairline cracks, creating steam that bakes the interior during the midday heat. Investigators from the National Social Welfare Department counted dozens of such pipe dwellings during a late 2024 survey. Noting photos and paper flowers taped to the dull gray walls as proof that dignity persists even within a cement cylinder. Every statistic and every lived detail confirms a single reality. Women sustain the heartbeat of Happyland by transforming refuse into revenue concrete pipes into bedrooms and unimaginable pressure into the fragile continuity of family life. Number 5. Pagpag famous food. Pagpag, a term in Tagalog that means to shake off dust, has become the defining meal of Happyland because every other source of protein costs far beyond reach. Collectors wait until restaurant kitchens switch off the neon signs, then climb wire fences and pull black garbage bags onto side streets where tricycles idle with engines humming. Fried chicken bones, half-eaten hamburgers, and clumps of rice slide from those bags into stackable plastic tubs that teeter on improvised pushcarts. At first light, mothers gather around iron cookware, blackened by years of open-fire use, tip the previous night's haul into basins of tanker water and scrub away visible mold grit or paper fragments. Large knives shave charred batter from chicken skin, while children separate meat from bone with astonishing speed learned through repetition rather than instruction. Once cleaned, the fragments simmer with garlic peeling, soy paste, and wild chili leaves plucked from roadside planters, producing a broth whose scent oscillates between comfort and burnt grease. No part goes unused. Even brittle bones are crushed with wooden mallets to stretch the stock. Every ladle poured into tin bowls represents calories rescued from oblivion. Medical volunteers who sampled finished portions during a 2025 nutrition survey found bacterial counts exceeding national safety thresholds by 30%. Although none expressed surprise, knowing the ingredients often linger unrefrigerated for 12 hours before cooking. The Department of Health attributes recurring outbreaks of diarrhea and salmonella across informal settlements to this very practice, but acknowledges that without Pagpag, overall child malnutrition would climb even higher. 95 Filipino children die of starvation each day, and many of their families survive on less than $2. Food safety becomes a luxury concept when absence outweighs contamination. Within Happyland, Pagpag is discussed without shame, because everybody understands the bargain. Eat what society discards or face an empty plate. Mothers describe the recipe as recycled life, not recycled food. A phrase that lands heavy and true amid the smoke of cracked wood fires. This dish is even considered a famous local specialty here. Number 6. Children robbed of childhood. What marked the beginning of your childhood? Plush bears, bright toy cars, or endless afternoons spent chasing sunlight without a single worry. In Happyland, childhood opens instead with the thick scent of damp refuse and the clang of metal scavenged before dawn. Infants nurse beside mounds of waste, while older siblings tug burlap sacks nearly as tall as themselves, because family income depends on every bottle gathered and every scrap of cardboard rescued. By the time many children reach the age of 5, they already recognize which garbage truck carries the most valuable haul. A skill learned long before reading or writing. The Philippine Department of Education reported in early 2025 that more than 2 million children remain out of school nationwide, with the highest concentrations in informal settlements such as Happyland. Without classrooms or playgrounds, curiosity narrows into a daily contest for calories. Hunger reshapes imagination into survival instinct, swapping fairy tales for sharp calculations about weight, price, and distance to the nearest junk dealer. Childhood shrinks to the dimensions of a rubbish heap, leaving little space for dreams unrelated to the next meal. Economic pressure erodes traditional lines of protection, and investigative units from the United Nations Children's Fund recorded a steep rise in live-streamed child exploitation across Manila during the 2024 monitoring cycle. Digital transactions lure guardians with quick payments that translate into food and water, turning living rooms of patched plywood into impromptu studios where innocence is bartered through smartphone cameras. Once a household begins relying on this income stream, withdrawal proves nearly impossible, because legitimate wages seldom match even the modest sums sent by overseas predators. Conscience becomes an equation weighed against the rumble of empty stomachs. Early parenthood locks the cycle in place, as limited access to reproductive education leaves teenagers unaware of reliable contraception until responsibility arrives uninvited. A newborn means additional water to purchase and more meals to stretch, nudging older children deeper into the scavenging economy. Community volunteers distribute family planning pamphlets, but printed pages rarely travel far amid twisting lanes and unregistered addresses. Each generation inherits the same landscape of stacked refuse and scarce opportunity, reinforcing a rhythm where playtime is replaced by labor and classrooms by scrapyards. In Happyland, childhood does not bloom. It negotiates bargains and perseveres, carrying the weight of survival long before adulthood calls. Number 7. Whose fault is it? Residents of Happyland never signed a lease for poverty. The city wrote it instead. Land prices soared beyond reach, while wages lagged, forcing families to the cheapest margins. Urban zoning laws favored condominiums and malls, leaving no legal plots for low-income shelters. When eviction teams cleared informal blocks, compensation packages rarely included those without documented addresses. Cut from formal housing lists, newcomers built wherever garbage heaps offered free foundation. Political representation remained distant because unregistered voters rarely influence ballot counts or policy drafts. Without birth certificates or property deeds, community voices carried no weight in council hearings. Access to healthcare, education, and credit hinged on paperwork most residents could never secure. Meanwhile, city planners awarded tax breaks to developers, promising upscale towers and rooftop gardens. Profit flowed upward, and environmental risk flowed down into flood-prone alleys of scrapwood. Critics still blame Happyland for its own conditions, calling hardship a product of laziness. That narrative conveniently ignores decades of skewed incentives and deliberate administrative neglect. National statistics show more than 60% of Manila's workforce remains informally employed. Informal laborers pay taxes on consumer goods but receive few public benefits in return. Social housing waitlists stretch 20 years, while speculative condos stand half-empty beside bayfront highways. Loan programs require collateral impossible to provide when your house sits on borrowed ground. Public transport routes bypass the district, so job hunts begin with expensive motor taxi rides. Every barrier compounds the next, turning individual effort into a marathon through wet cement. When families stumble, observers call it personal failure rather than structural sabotage. Blaming the victim saves everyone else from confronting policies that privilege aesthetics over equity. Until the system owns its part, each new project downtown will cast a longer shadow here. Number 8. Happiness still exists. Despite how harsh life may be here, people in this community still live up to the name Happyland. It's not the kind of happiness built from comfort, wealth, or opportunity, but something raw, resilient, and real. Something many outsiders fail to understand. Even with poverty pressed into every corner of the street, you still see people smiling. Old men gather around makeshift chessboards, studying each move with quiet focus, completely unbothered by the traffic, the noise, or the heat. Teenagers surround a pool table patched together from plywood and tape, taking turns with splintered cues, bursting into laughter after each wild shot. Children run barefoot through alleys, chasing soda cans or swinging from worn-out ropes, their joy louder than the rumble of nearby trucks. What surprises you most is not what they lack, but how warmly they welcome you in. Strangers here are not met with suspicion, but with open faces. A father of 6 proudly invites you into his one-room home. No apologies, no shame. He introduces each child with a smile, pointing to the corner they call their classroom. A few chalk lines on the floor, cardboard taped to the wall, and hand-drawn letters proudly displayed like medals. The children clap and beam with pride, eager to show what they've learned. You feel something shift, not pity, but admiration, because joy here is not forced, it's chosen. It's built into the way people look after one another, laugh with one another, survive with one another. In these moments, the name Happyland stops feeling ironic. It starts to feel earned. This is not a happiness that depends on how much you own, but on how much you give, how deeply you love, and how fiercely you hold on to hope, especially when the world expects you to let go. Number 9. Charitable organizations. So what about you? Will you treat Happyland as a district to avoid, or as a community that deserves real help? If your answer is help, you can start right now by connecting with 3 groups that already shine light into these narrow streets. Project Pearls, founded in California, yet rooted in Tondo, begins every dawn ladling protein-rich porridge into small bowls. After breakfast, volunteers flip the same space into makeshift literacy circles beneath tarpaulin roofs, while a mobile clinic checks temperatures and hands out vitamins. When a student excels, the group unlocks a scholarship slot at a public school and covers bus fare, so distance never becomes an excuse to drop out. Donations are flexible. You can give once, set up a monthly pledge, or ship books, pens, and basic medicines through local partners. A few blocks away, you'll spot the green shirts of Oikos Helping Hand. Every Saturday, the team distributes rice, canned fish, and lentils, each food parcel paired with a tuition kit envelope. For roughly the price of a downtown coffee, you can keep one child in class for an entire term. Uniform textbooks exam fees included. Oikos also installs solar lights so teens can study after dark, and hosts money management workshops for parents, turning a free meal into a long-term ladder of self-reliance. Further north humanility patches the final holes in the social safety net. One week, their truck brings grain blankets and clothes to an alley scorched by fire. The next, it unloads roofing sheets and timber for families washed out by a typhoon. Children rescued from trafficking learn to craft jewelry from local shells, and every necklace sold online returns as wages and school supplies. You can donate to a general fund sponsor, a specific child, or underwrite a single roof panel. The website breaks each option into clear, tangible numbers. You don't need a fortune to make an impact. A skipped lunch, a shared post, or an hour translating a brochure can shift tomorrow's odds for someone in Happyland. Every time one more person chooses to stand with these organizations, the darkness of neglect retreats another step. If this journey of sights and sounds has helped you see Happyland through new eyes, recognizing that behind the stench lies compassion, and behind hardship echoes laughter, then keep that spotlight burning. Share this story. Support the organizations building bridges of hope, and above all, refuse to let silence drown out these voices. For more unfiltered perspectives like this, tap like and hit subscribe to stay with NVL Travel Documentary on every step of the road ahead.